just looking from afar or up close at what you're seeing so far in the government's response or lack of response to the coronavirus, do you see generic themes that you would have seen if Barack Obama was president now or George W. Bush? Are there kind of characteristics of our government that are now apparent?
Certainly, there are some areas of this where we would not have been prepared no matter who was president. And that reflects, I suppose you could even almost call it human nature as well. You often don't prepare for something that might happen down the road because you have a short-term focus, or in some cases because you might be a little superstitious about bringing on the next crisis. You don't want to spend a lot of money now that won't be used right away because you won't get credit for it, and people are going to say, why are you doing this when we've got these immediate needs? Those are chronic issues. And so I don't believe, for example, that anybody would have foreseen 3 years ago or 5 years ago that the next pandemic would require an enormous stockpile of ventilators. But at the same time, here's what we know. We know that the Obama administration, thanks in part to Ron Klain, who handled it, dealt with the Ebola outbreak, which could have been an absolute devastation, adeptly, and also made sure that they had money given to countries where outbreaks could occur that could then spread around the rest of the world. We know that they set up a pandemic task force unit within the National Security Council for rapid response. We know that they did a tabletop exercise after the last presidential election before the inaugural to prepare people in the incoming Trump administration for this. And they did a handbook to help prepare. The handbook was thrown out. The tabletop was disregarded. The task force was disbanded. And when we had warning signs in December and January, and we have documentary evidence of this, Democrats in the House and Senate, Chris Murphy, senator from Connecticut among them, writing letters to top officials in the National Security Council, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Centers for Disease Control, saying, hey, we've got this terrible pandemic. It's going to come over here. What are you doing about it? We're disregarded. Now, any administration can, shrug off sort of the sky is falling kinds of things. We know that the George W. Bush administration did it when National Security Council expert Richard Clarke told them that there was going to be an attack that might involve airplanes. And Condoleezza Rice said, didn't push it up to the next level. That can happen anywhere. But in this case, the disregard, knowing history and knowing what was happening, is unprecedented. And it's a reflection not just on President Trump, but on a lot of the people around him in the National Security Council, from Alex Azar on down in the Department of Health and Human Services, in the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and across the board. We have a group of people, and I hope we're going to get a 9/11 style commission next year that will look into this, point the blame where it's deserved for the delays, because those delays have demonstrably caused more deaths than we would have otherwise, but also tries to give us a better framework for the next time.